Test. Ooh, cool, works. Honey Wash Day. Good morning, everyone. Before we start the actual official program, when we do our opening prayers and stuff, I wanted to, come in and say good morning to y'all and do a little bit of recognition for our actual staff that makes things work behind the scene. Couple announcements. Where is June? June is with the Phoenix Indian Center, and then Jolana is with the Phoenix Indian Center. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that they were so important to this event in order for us to make this actually successful. And not only did they come up and just really went 100% helping us with this. It's always good to see other organizations and recognize them, not only for the jobs that they do that the Indian Center does, but doing things like this, coming out here, working to ensure that our people are educated and aware of the issues, that how important it is to vote. So with that, I would like to bring our crew up, including the our Phoenix Indian Center. If you could come up to the stage, please. And I was told the other day, or last night, the program looks so great, and no errors. And I'd be walking around, looking at our staff and stuff. Come on up here. Our staff and stuff, and their faces were so stressed out. it was like, we got to recognize them, because yesterday was a great program. And what we wouldn't have accomplished if it wasn't for our crew. And so, and the one that actually keeps me in line and on time is here doing what she's supposed to be doing, is making sure it works. June, you want to come on up? I was just talking about the Phoenix Indian Center and what a great job they're doing and stuff, and I wanted to recognize the crew that's behind it. So, June, if you could just say some things about the Phoenix Indian Center, and then we're going to go down and have our crew introduce each other, or everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Our CEO, Jolana, she will be on her way, but just really quickly, we are extremely honored to be able to work with Four Directions and the people here to put on this event. Phoenix Indian Center is one of the oldest established Indian centers in the country. We've been existing and doing work for the community since 1947. We service the whole Phoenix metro area. If you're not familiar, it's one of the largest metro areas in the valley. We have a number of various tribes that live in this area. We do a lot of programming, from youth development. We do a lot of civic engagement work, workforce development, and a variety of other events. You stop at the table there, you'll see a whole list of everything that we do for the community. Our program is very community-based. We're always focusing on our people, and it's really the heart of our organization. Just to let you know, I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator for the Phoenix Indian Center. I'm half Acoma Alta from the Gila River Indian community. I'm also half Dene, born for the Bitterwater clan. Excuse me. And I love doing this work. It's been great working with all the team here. Thank you for coming out, and we have a lot of work going on today.
I also want to say one more thing, is the Phoenix Indian Center is a 501c3, and although they may get funds from other places, they can always use donations. And so later on, we're going to post their website up on the screen here. I hope you take a look at it, and if you can't do it, find friends that can. They do an amazing job. Sorry. See ya.
Thank you, OJ. I think June didn't give herself enough credit. She's been organizing in Arizona for a really long time to get out the native vote, and I just want to make sure that she feels honored because a lot of the work that has been done has been, a lot of hustle that June has done. And I'm privileged to work with her. Gumadat ventiv, nyephamol, Licio Ortega, mapipanyanyum, nyatsnyahaps, gamantsquatan, nipshramul, nahar. Greetings, relatives. My name is Licio Ortega. I'm from the Quetzal people, born for the Turtle Clan. I've been supporting OJ and his candidate forums since 2019, and it's a privilege to be here among all of these wonderful organizers to make this happen. Yaha.
Wait a minute. Don't you also have a business or work somewhere?
Yes, I'm the vice president at Thunderbird Strategic. I do federal Indian law and policy in my other job that I do. And so my portfolios are native vote, land in sacred places, and other civic engagement efforts.
Thank you.
Yad e bine shik edo shidane. She e twada cheat ni nishle ado den hlabahit bashichin ma ide skiji dashiche ado den hlabahit dashinale. Aiden Clydes yinishe chihod so or tehod so de na shak ade hosdo deshagan. Arizona State University de in ado Phoenix Indian Center de nashnish. Communication specialist nishle. Ak otego den estzan nishle. Yahat. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Aiden Clydes. I'm a communications specialist at the Phoenix Indian Center. I do the marketing and communications on our social medias and our website, newsletters about like GOTV efforts. So I'm doing a lot of that education and engagement with June and our civic engagement team. That's kind of my work. I've done a lot of kind of like grassroots stuff in college, and I've just been really involved with Get Out the Vote since I would say 2016 is kind of what sparked me getting into politics and civic engagement a little bit more, but since then I've just been more active and try to engage and educate myself so I can bring that back to community. And that's a little bit about me. Yeah, thank you all for having me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shelby. I do events and outreach coordination at the Phoenix Indian Center. So any of our large events like the Phoenix Powwow or the S&T Ball that are coming up, I'm going to have a little bit of a hand in that. So that's a little bit about me.
Hello, everyone. I am Donna Brandis.
I can't hear you.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello again. I am Donna Brandis. I am the granddaughter of Barb and OJ, as well as their executive assistant. Basically, I work on field with 4 Directions on getting out the vote and organizing.
Hamadakyapi Techilapi Maniwi Amachapi. My name is Jillian Wan. I'm Sichangula Kota from the Rosebud Reservation based in South Dakota, and I'm the marketing director for a Lakota-led organization called Sichanguko, and I'm here to support my relatives, OJ and his family, with whatever they need.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Fuller. I also work for Sichanguko. I'm our admin operations officer. Also granddaughter of OJ and Barb. And yeah, we're here to support them and support Indian country in general. And we are also a 501c3. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Chun. My full name is Harlan Charles Grew Jr., but since I'm a junior and I'm from the res, call me Chun. Been known as Chun my whole life, and I work primarily with Sichanguko and the different Sichanguko initiatives to help make any kind of graphics, photos, videos, and really anywhere they need me to be for different events and planning and coordinating. I work primarily with Jillian under marketing and storytelling, and started working with OJ and the rest of the team here to design the website for 4 Directions, and also on site to help like take photos and film and try to really capture the moment of why everyone's here.
Hello, I'm Justin. I work with 4 Directions. I've been with them since 2018, doing photo, video, and other outreach projects, kind of everywhere. They kind of bring me wherever they want to go.
He's like that little rabbit, going around. I'm everywhere. No.
Yeah, so they just tell me where to go, and I always love helping out, and everyone here has been like a family, so it's been really fun to work with.
Good morning, everyone. Ya'at'e, to all of you, all of my relatives, she'e trachini nishlindod senajini bashishchin, klash she'e dashitche ado ya'idin etrachini dashanala akut ego estana nishle, Jolana begay krupa yanishye do e yasina shahado et sahot so de. So I come from the community originally up on Navajo, Fort Defiance, Window Rock. I was born and raised up there. And I moved to the Valley over 20 years ago, and I'm now an urban mother, raising my 3 boys here in the Phoenix metro area. I serve as the CEO for the amazing Phoenix Indian Center, which is the oldest Indian center in the country, established 77 years ago. And we are an organization dedicated to providing support for our relatives that live here, and our civic work is one of those core service areas that we're very proud to be able to implement into our community, because we're a trusted org and we have lots of work to do around it. So thank you so much to Four Directions, to Alicia for reaching out to us. We're always an org that's willing to partner and work alongside each other to get the work done. So thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Donna Siemens. I am the grassroots organizer for Four Directions. I'm also from the Rosebud Sioux Indian Reservation. Daughter to Barb and OJ. They're heathen, so no. But I've been working for them for 20 years.
And then, who do we have?
Oh, and one of our other team members just walked in, Madonna Sitting Bear. She's in the back there. Also from Sichonguko. So thank you. She's my guide, so I wouldn't probably have made it here if it wasn't for her.
And, you know, what I want you to see is all the young people. They're our future, and they made this work. So let's give them a round of applause. One of the things about being a Lakota or Sioux from Rosebud is the fact that we consider, when we meet people, our relatives. And when we do things like this, when we go across the country, there's nothing better to meet new relatives. So as we go along, we plan on meeting more and more. We plan on reaching out. But as I said, you know, like Four Directions, it's a 501c3, 501c4. We were C4 mainly not because of being able to be partisan. We became a C4 because back in 2002, our donations were coming from tribes. And although it's not, you know, locked in stone, we use a C4 so that when tribes donated to Four Directions, we could protect them just in case an election didn't go away one of them wanted to, and keep them from getting any type of repercussion. So, you know, in the Phoenix Indian Center, their 501c3 is nonpartisan. And so, you know, again, we'll put the website links up there, but consider donating. If you don't, consider having some friends that may be able to do so. $10 works. I mean, believe me. I've seen those commercials where you could feed a puppy for a year for $10. And what we would like you to do is help us feed our people for a year for $10. So, is she here? Yes. Okay. And I was just the entertainment until we actually started the program, so. And again, they're leaving, but thank you. Okay. I don't know why they give me an agenda. I basically never follow it. You know, we always start our meetings in a good way. And a lot of people say, you know, prayers are blessings, but when you come to Indian country, it's really not a prayer, or it's really not a blessing, it's a way of our life. And so we always honor the Great Spirit regardless of who you pray for. We always start out with a blessing for our people so that we can have a good day and a good year. So I'd like to have Senator Teresa Dalmore. Are you related to Jesse Dalmore? Oh, okay. I saw that name work together. To do our opening prayer.
Yat bene ado hia shaping between nishle eshin bashin trabain da chedo tedeshkishin etashanale ado teko sanade ada eya nasha. Good morning to all my relatives here today. I am Deer Springs Water, that's my maternal clan. My father's clan, I was born for the Salt clan, and then my maternal grandparents were the Edgewater clan, and then my paternal grandparents are the Rock Gap people. And I come from Coal Mine Mesa, Arizona. I think our population is hitting the all-time high of 627 at the last count, and more than half are registered voters. So I'm very happy of that accomplishment. I am the current Arizona State Senator for Legislative District 6. And so I've been in this capacity for 3 sessions. A lot of times people say, I've been here for 20 years, but you know, in the legislature, we just talk about sessions. That seems to be our life. But I will say a prayer in my own language and provide that as a path forward. My father used to always say every morning and every evening you say a prayer, whether it's for blessings or help or whatever the case may be. But in real life, you constantly have a prayerful thought, even as you're driving down the road. You know, I was driving this way and I ran into an accident. It was one of those fender benders. And I was like, please, Lord, let me get there and be on time. So it's prayerful all the way around, so thank you. So I'll say a short prayer. Koto hujondo le. Shamana zan shitra yadelhil. Adendin shandin nchadiyin konde eya. Beniye holon bana holon ko eya elhikre. Ado e ko ntakes nahat ina sihaden zin. Ado inda eya ayo otne ado otla. Okut go betesale go konde jo batni zin. Kut au be ya to the desin lo. Be ya na oka ete shlilti kwa abene. Be hol jishiki. Ado di kwa elto Kea has age kon ein hik dan ligo competence ligi dan ligo kon be kea pakai to the dilzin. She ya kodo stenek at she holo she kellet hato sit age shed osasilage ya sheda honosen. Ado nda koage ne tentin ne yo ne be na in zihi be hatalt na in lately konde. Be ni hil do le ni zineki it ego. Ni he otla holo, ni yin holo, ni hitotezin holo. Ado nda ba chopa ni ziniki il do holo. Ni he yo otne. Ado nda kon ni he na nish holo gini bi gentle bi kon nta nas neta. Kwaege yol kal kwaege o al kwae. Nilje inna da huishij Ado e di kompala ashlai dan linigi inda e keya ado inda e kon bits is ka hahotet ado bi yi hot ado tchota halonjin chita halonjin etin tin chahal hel ta halonj al tskope hahotet inda da hotes ago kon yana ho kanj inda hos aje kon bi ho nil to bi na alte to bi hot age kon de na hat ba halonla ado e sote zimba halonla inda da e sin kut ego e ben hilta honne jonte e ta anila hot al has age be hodet ege nat etlege kon o a khayuj e ya nan nishbi holo o ali ayol khali konde a jiyande hashine laje bilta bik edo chehet ta bik etat enda akut enda e la hodonil yat e huito alto yat on khalchine e bait nhitsokia bait nhik hitene. The work that we do is for all of us as five-fingered individuals, as entities, as beings, as divine, earth-dwelling individuals. And then also for our environment, our water, our air, our space, our light, and the darkness that we dwell upon every day and every night, for our children, our grandchildren, for generations to come. That is our prayer, that is our thought, and that is our plan all the time. And I ask of you for blessings for this day, for this message to be heard, to be understood, and then to also go forward and take that step forward, to be an advocate based on kindness, based on good thoughts, positive thoughts, and good energy and motivation, not just here, but for all going forward. And I ask this of you this day, Creator. Kut ego etotete sin hut inje na itish kal konde. Bo ohishla belahishla be nohol nito le kom. Alt skoje enash nito le kon ya yo ne holo. Nhik holo, nhikeya holo. Adon hinat ani el tota holo. Adon da kon hich yan el tota holo don hitonas ka. Adon da kon khalchini hitsokes naso na nchentsa kes ke konde. Nye otla holondo. Nhi yin hitsotezen alt skopenashni dole. Hut ego dola po oho dola belaho hut ego tsotesin dole. Hojona hasli, hojona hasli, hojona hasli, hojona hasli. Thank you. Thank you for, you may have a seat. I just want to say thank you and express appreciation for the request to be here, and then also for the staff at the Phoenix Indian Center, and then for the organizers that were up here. And I'm so happy to see youth right here, to be able to take up these reins. I've worked with youth for more than 20 years, and it's wonderful to see that they're willing and they're able, they're capable, and they have the potential. That's the seed that we have planted in them with guidance, with teachings, and making sure that we give them those resources to go forward and empower themselves. I think that's very important. In our culture, we have a concept of every tribe has that concept. And so if it's going to happen, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I think all the way around, I just want to thank everybody for that. I just want to share a short story. My father, my mom and my my father have gone on, and as they have taught us, and they gave us the tools to continue on. But one day, this is about voting. I was young when I started working, and one day people are talking about politics, and I was just listening. And then one of the gentlemen says to me, "Do you vote?" And I said, "No." And then he says, "If you vote, then you can't complain." And then I was thinking, So I went home and I talked to my dad. And my dad is an avid voter, does not miss it, him and my mom. And my dad used to tell us, when you're 18, when you come of age, you vote, you register to vote. He didn't ask us if we wanted to vote. He didn't ask us that. He told us that when this age comes about, this is what you're going to do. So when that time came for me, like 3 days later, we were still celebrating and, enjoying life. And then 3 days later, he says, "Did you register to vote?" I said, "Dad, I just turned 18 3 days ago." And he says, "You should have done it that day." So then, so he told me to make sure it happens. So I did. A few days later, I registered to vote, and I've been a registered voter ever since. But he told me, just based on the conversation, I still hear it today, and I've worked in voter engagement, registration, working polls, and everything for a number of years. But I have this constant communication out there with voters. They always say, "I don't vote because I don't get any money. All these people, they use my census and my CIB, but I don't get any money. I don't get any help." So when I told my dad about that, I said, "This is what I hear out there." And then a few days later, or quite some time had left, and then he told me that. He says, "For you, I don't ever want you to say that or to think that. Because every day you go to school, where do you think that money comes from? And then you're going into these buses and traveling down the road. You have a vehicle, you have a hospital, you go to everything. A lot of those resources out there is because of money. And money comes to us because of voting, the voting power. Not just money, but resources. And so those are some of the things that he communicated to me about. And that's the reasoning that they always give to me. But he told me, he says, "You vote not for you, because you have 2 feet, you have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head, a brain, and you're capable and you're able. You can't ever say, 'I want money,' because you know how to weave. You can market, you'll get money. You can bead, you can sew, you can go out and be a consultant. You can do it, you're capable in that way. So you can't say that, you can't say sha, you can't say give me money. And so you're capable of that. But when you vote, you're voting for that child that can't vote. You're voting for that elder that can't vote, for that veteran. That's who you're voting for. You're not voting for your betterment. So you go out there, you get those resources, you bring it back, you provide it to your community, and when they utilize those tools, then they're able to make a better life for themselves. That's how you raise your community with you. It's not just about you. So I think that that's the communication and that mindset that we need to have. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the work that everybody is doing. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to our leaders. I see Shajat, President Nez is here. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
And that's why we have opening prayers and blessings before we start our meeting, because we really get empowered by the words and by our spirits that are coming here and watching over us. So thank you very much. We're going to get into, wait, I'm backing up here. Want to really acknowledge Governor Lewis. If you look at anything that's going on politically, he makes sure the natives are at the table. And so I really want to thank him for doing that. And he's always been supportive of getting out the vote and of making sure that natives are heard. The other one I want to recognize, and he's actually going to speak next, is President Nez. I'm the executive director of the Coalition of Large Tribes also. And the Navajo Nation is a member of that, and President Nez was part of the Coalition of Large Tribes. And so, I mean, we are so intermixed with different things that we do, but it all comes back into the circle where we meet again, and there's ways that we can help them, because again, they became friends and relatives when we made that connection. So President Nez, can you come up and give us a few of your minutes?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I recognize the coffee has yet to kick in, but it is an important event to be a part of, and thank you to the organizers, OJ, and the Four Directions, Native Vote, Phoenix Indian Center as well, Ms. Kropa, and the Coalition of Large Tribes. I am here with my wife, Phefelia. You want to stand up? Former First Lady of the Navajo Nation, Phefelia Nez. Yeah. And thank you for coming and tagging along with me this morning. I know we dropped off the boys this morning at school and made our journey down south to the homelands. And I appreciate Governor Lewis for allowing us to be in the area on your on many of your indigenous lands here, our tribes. We honor you today. And the event that's taking place is the importance of voting. And we appreciate everyone for being here, and being here for the past couple of days now, 3-day conference. I see also our Ak-Chin chairman, Chairman Miguel. Give him a round of applause as well. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. And as I look through the audience, I'm trying to spot some people. But all the tribal leaders that are here, thank you for being here. Now, I just wanted to introduce myself in Navajo, so just allow me to do that. Introduce myself with my clans, and just thanking everyone once again for being here, and thank you for the beautiful and strong prayer from our Arizona Senator Hatratli. And as you may have noticed, I'm speaking the Navajo language. And the reason why I want to highlight speaking in our own language is because, you know, we have contributed, Native Americans have contributed big to this country, am I right? You hear the debate on television. I may get a little political, but hey, it's a voter initiative training these next 3 days, and also highlighting the importance of voting. But, you know, we hear words like invasion at the border, right? You hear all sorts of things on the television, and it makes you kind of scratch your head, right, as indigenous people, and wonder, what about the invasion that happened decades and centuries ago? They don't talk about that, right? But let me also just say that the United States here is a strong country, a strong nation, because of our diversity, right? People came to this country wanting a better future for themselves and for their children and their grandchildren, right? And we as indigenous peoples have always been here. And it's quite interesting. Some would say we have yet to be invited to the American dream. While people come from all over the world for that American dream, you see. And you tend to scratch your head and wonder what people are talking about these days. But it's a great opportunity for us as voters, as indigenous leaders, to remind this country, our friends, let me say that, our friends that are non-native, about our big contribution to this country and to democracy all over the world, right? Give yourselves a big round of applause. This country, this government was modeled after watching a tribe, watching an indigenous nation, right? And how they governed themselves. We forgot about that. That history should be continued to be told in our classrooms, right? But yet today, here's the political part, but yet today, people are pulling those types of textbooks out of our classrooms and our libraries. We need to continue to teach the truth. Yes, it may be a sad part of the United States history, but people need to know that indigenous people persevered. We never gave up, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We are still here today, thriving. And our children need to hear that as well. In tribal communities, and many tribal communities all across the country, there's a loss of some hope. Even all across the rural parts of this country, the loss of hope. Because of the divisive talk, the anger and the frustration in this country, I think more so than ever before. Don't you remember the days where Republicans and independents and Democrats used to work together for all of us? And I know a presidential candidate today says we're not going back, which is right. But don't we miss the days of how leaders used to work together across the aisle? And let me just also highlight that this, and you hear this all the time, probably every election. This is the most important election of all time. Have you heard that before? Yesterday? And then probably that person said, this election, right, is probably the most important in our lifetime. Because we have to preserve democracy. And the language that I spoke earlier, the Navajo language, beautiful language, and all the other languages in the Southwest indigenous nations all across the country, our warriors fought to preserve and expand democracy, not just in this country, but all over the world. And I honor them, and we honor them on a daily basis by sharing our culture, our language, and our ways of life. We honor them. And I know one of the things that we need to do is encourage our folks to vote, right? And sometimes because of the division and other issues, let me just say that, some people don't want to vote, right? I'm not going to vote. right? And I've heard that before, being the president of the Navajo Nation. But we also need to remind our citizens that our warriors who fought for our way of life to continue on into the future, those that served our country, and the veterans that are here today that have served in the military, we honor you today. Let's give them a big round of applause. And let us not forget our ancestors, even the ones who fought against the United States of America. It's because they wanted to preserve our ways, our tradition, our culture, our language into the future. And our warriors who fought for this country on the front lines did the same thing for us. And we need to remind our citizens that we need to honor our warriors. They gave us the freedom to do whatever we want, of course, following laws. And they also fought for our right to vote. And we need to honor them and not just ourselves, you see. And I think one of the talking points as we're out there encouraging our citizens to vote is just that, letting them know that they are warriors themselves, that they are on the front lines of fighting for our democracy, not just in this country, but all over the world, you see. We have warriors and lady warriors. I have a slogan that says, "Warrior up and vote," because this is a time where voting is very important. As you may know, I am vying to be the first Native American to be elected from the state of Arizona to the U.S. House of Representatives. And not to boast, I'm just saying that many of you that are seated here today, Governor Lewis, and many of the tribal leaders, we had to break glass ceilings in order for our younger generation to know that it is possible to be in either positions of leadership or positions of growth. For us, we have to break that glass ceiling in the state of Arizona. And it's about time. Our neighbors in New Mexico put their first woman, Native American, in Congress, and her name is Deb Haaland, right? And now she's the Secretary of Interior, ladies and gentlemen. Who knows, I might be the Secretary of Transportation. Let's fix those potholes in our tribal communities, right? There you go, we got one person here saying amen to that. But ladies and gentlemen, all jokes aside, this is a very important election. We need to engage our communities. I've seen Sunday, I did attend church, but after church, we were out there registering Native American voters, young natives who are very excited about this race. And again, not to boast, but just to let you know that there is wide interest in this race all across the country and even in our communities. We had new registered voters on Sunday. And there's hope in our community. We were on the Navajo Nation, we registered a vote, and I truly believe, and it's not because of me, but it's because of you, that there's going to be a record turnout in voting in tribal communities this election. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Because that's a message that folks need to know, not just here in Arizona, but all across the country, that the Native vote is powerful, right? 4 years ago, here in the state of Arizona, we were influential in putting our president of choice, and you know who that is, in the White House. 2 years ago, we were able to put a governor, a secretary of state, a attorney general of our choice in Phoenix at our state capitol. And now another election's coming. And we have an opportunity to show everyone in the rest of this country that we're not going away. We're just getting stronger when it comes to elections. And it's because of each and every one of you on the front lines of protecting our democracy, protecting our ways, our culture, our tradition, our language. We are all, as I mentioned, warriors and lady warriors. And I just appreciate the opportunity. I'm hoping I can encourage you. These next 6 weeks, Cecilia? I lost count. 6 weeks before the election. It's going by fast. Going by very fast. To go out there, knock on doors. There's no more excuse to not be registered. Back in the old day, you had to fill out a voter registration card, put it in the mail, and 2-3 weeks later, you finally get your voter card, right? Today, there's a QR code, if you know what that means. You just zap it, and you're able to register online and register to vote. And so we need to encourage all our 18-year-old and older to register to vote. And this is another thing that not many people talk about. We also need to let people know to check their voter registration status. If you don't vote in a couple of elections, they take you off the roll. And I'm sure you're going to have presentations about voter engagement, disenfranchisement. The state is well known for that, right? Especially in tribal communities. But we have to learn the system. We can't just feel sorry for ourselves and another law passed, boo-hoo. No. We need to educate our people, more so now than ever before. Look at what the U.S. Supreme Court did a few weeks ago. The only state in the union, Arizona, to where now you have to show ID, proof of citizenship. And you would think that's a no-brainer. You got to be a U.S. citizen. Everybody's got a birth certificate. Everybody can get an ID. But some of us that live in the most rural parts of the tribal communities understand that our elders were born at home. They don't have no birth certificate. In order for them to get a birth certificate, they have to jump through so much hoops in order for them to get the birth certificate. And once they get their birth certificate, they have to finally go to the motor vehicle division and get their ID. And you know what? This law, this U.S. Supreme Court ruling, I should say the U.S. Supreme Court ruling, disenfranchised many of our elders. And they're not going to be able to get their voter registration back in time for this election. But we just tell them, vote provisional. Get a provisional. Not many Native Americans know that. They'll be told, no, you can't vote, and they're out the door. Challenge it and say, I want a provisional ballot. And we need to make sure that every vote counts in this election. Because you know what? Some of these races are going to be very, very close. And so I appreciate the opportunity, again, to be here. And all to the tribal leaders and all the advocates here today, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. Be careful out there. Our prayers are with you. Our ancestors' prayers are with you. And just be reminded that we're not doing it for ourselves, right? We're doing it for our children, our grandchildren, and 7 generations into the future and beyond. God bless you. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. And ahehe, as we say in Navajo. Thank you.
Thank you, President Nez. You've always been very friendly to Indian country and our issues, and you're always showing up for us. So best wishes to you in your race, and thank you again for showing up today. Hello again, I'm Licia Ortega, and this next panel is designated for Arizona tribal leadership. So if I can have our Arizona tribal leaders come on up for us, we'll go ahead and get started. This roundtable discussion today is really just to learn a little bit more about the issues specifically that Arizona tribes are facing. I do see that we have a couple of candidates in the room today, and this discussion hopefully will offer you information that will help you to develop your policy platform specifically in the state, and if you're running for Congress, help you to develop more of some sightlines to understand how to support the whole of Indian country and our issues. So I'll have all of our leadership introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our discussion.
Skug Sialek, Anya Anap Chugat, Governor Stephen Earl Lewis of the Gila River Indian Community. Can we give candidate, former President Jonathan Nez another round of applause? He serving together as fellow tribal leaders, he has been amazing, amazing leader. I've learned so much from him, and let's just give him and give him prayers and blessings as he finishes off strong and makes history for Arizona and all of Indian country. Thank you, sir. I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. I am going to have to leave. We are going to be the community that is breaking ground on a new water efficiency project with the Bureau of Reclamation, the Department of Interior, so I'm going to have to excuse myself. But before that, I just want to say thank you to Four Directions, Mr. O.J. Siemens, all of the family and the foundation here that is putting this together. This is critical. As we all know, the 22 tribal nations here in Arizona, the native vote is ground zero. November 5th, tribal sovereignty, freedom is on the ballot. And for the Gila River Indian community, I know the tribes here, we have so much rich history in what we've contributed to this great state of Arizona, what we've had to fight for. And the native vote is no exception. And I look at these three leaders here who I have just an amazing amount of respect for, and their tribal communities as well. Our sister tribe from the Ak-Chin community, Chairman Miguel, from the Quechan tribe as well, leaders in water. And from the Fort McDowell, the Madam President here, who she has an incredible story about the fight for the native vote here in Arizona. For the Gila River Indian community, I just look to two individuals, Peter Porter and Rudolph Johnson Bott, who started the fight for the native vote, who were turned away from voting because they were not considered two things, because they were not considered either U.S. citizens or they were not considered competent to vote. And so when we think about the 100th anniversary of the Indian Citizenship Act, I tell our children back home, I tell our people back home, that this is nothing to celebrate about. This is something to take as a challenge. That here, as was said, the last peoples to be U.S. citizens who were the first indigenous native people to this land, what we call our O'odham Juvit here. I want to thank the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and President Javier as well for, and the leadership and our sister tribe here for hosting this very necessary gathering. But I tell our people, because we are a people of the Gila River, the Acoma O'odham people and the Pipash people, the Kudi Yakima, that's our namesake. And over 150 years ago, when our water, our O'odham Shudag, our water was stolen from us, we were neither U.S. citizens and we didn't have the right to vote. And I tell our children this. I tell those that are turning 18 to register, to vote, because our ancestors fought to keep us alive and to not just to survive, but to thrive into the future. And voting is so instrumental in this. I'm speaking to the tribes here, right? We're in the worst drought in over 1,200 years, a mega drought. This is going to push all of us, both Indians and non-Indians, to the brink. We have to come together and we have to find ways to collaborate, to respect. And I know all of the leaders here and the leaders among the tribes here in Arizona, you know, we're fighting for our water. We're fighting for our native water and our water rights. Now, at this minute, we're fighting. But you see that representation matters. You see exactly, you have the first Native American indigenous woman who is the secretary, the first ever secretary level, Secretary of Interior. She is the ultimate water master, if you look at the chain of command. And elections matter, right? Potentially the next president will be appointing 3 Supreme Court justices to the U.S. Supreme Court. This could change the face of democracy, of our very fabric of society in the United States, let alone tribal sovereignty, right? Let alone respecting and continuing to foster and to support that treaty trust relationship. There is a lot, literally, our livelihoods as indigenous people are on the ballot this coming November 5th. So as I wrap up, you know, 2 things. One is, of course, you know, we need to make sure that we get our people out. Each of us, as was said earlier, we need, and I think the great Stacey Abrams as well, you know, we need to make a plan to vote, right? We need to get at least and identify our family and our villages and our clans who hasn't voted, or more importantly, with only a few days left, who hasn't registered to vote, right? We need to do that because literally every vote counts. President Biden won Arizona by just over 10,000 votes, right? 4 years ago. Our great Democratic governor, Katie Hobbs, as was said, she won by just over 10,000 votes. It's going to be the native vote that is going to be the margin up and down the Arizona ballot. Every vote counts. So as I say that, I just want to thank everyone just giving me the time just to say a few words, and prayers and blessings to all of you, to my fellow tribal leaders, to all my relatives and friends here. Thank you so much. Mosap.
Robert McGill, but I'm just Auction Jivik. My name is Robert McGill. I'm chairman of the Auction Indian community. Congratulations to Governor Lewis and the Gila River community on their venture water project. I tell you what, the Gila River community, they're trailblazers, and they're innovators. And what they do with water, which is very precious to our communities, is really special. So congratulations to Gila River. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves really quick.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? It's working? Okay. My name is Donald Midar Jr., and I'm a councilman for the Fort Yuma Quetzal Indian tribe. We're located in Yuma, Arizona, and also in Winter Haven, California. So we're one of the tribes along the Colorado River down there. And so we're a smaller nation than most in Arizona, and we're just over 4,000 strong. All right, so I guess I wasn't on the microphone. That was just me. But we're a small nation along the Colorado River. We're a nation of just over 4,000, and we have lands in tribal membership on both sides of the river. And so these types of events are very important to us, as you know, sometimes we come into these arenas and they say, oh, well, you guys are a California tribe. And then we go to California and they say, you guys are an Arizona tribe. But we want you to know that, you know, we're a nation, you know, within Arizona and within California. And so thank you very much for allowing me to be on this panel. The president sends his regards. He wishes that he could be here this morning, but unfortunately there was some things that needed to be taken care of back home. So President Joaquin sends his best.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Good morning. My name is Sandra Patia. I'm the president for Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation, and it's a pleasure to be here today to speak about voting. And I'll go into more detail a little bit later when we have additional comments and to review our history that we had, a couple of the previous speakers had mentioned. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and welcome and thank you for bringing us here together. So the organization who has brought this together, this is my first time attending this event. It's actually my 7th month being in office, so it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for taking the time out of your very busy schedules, running Tribal Nations, to come and have this very important discussion with us today. As we all know, the decisions that are made require seats at the table. And so again, this forum is for us to discuss the policy priorities that are most important to the tribal nations here, making a connection back to potentially the federal responsibility to help us to get to those priority goals, and how you've done so far and the work that you're doing to get there. So just a little bit of background. I'm Lisa Ortega. I'm the vice president at Thunderbird Strategic. Thunderbird Strategic is a Washington, D.C. based firm that represents the Intertribal Association of Arizona on the policy priorities. The president of my organization sends his wishes. He cannot be here at this forum, but will be present at the Wisconsin forum so that he can moderate this panel in that space. But sitting in for him, we wanted to get into some of the priorities that we've been working on for Arizona tribal nations, and also just allow you all to talk about what the priorities are for you. So I think we'll just go ahead and start there. We'll go around and just talk about maybe some of the major priorities that you're working on within your nation, and then we can move on from there.
Okay, I'll go ahead and begin. Thank you. You know, I want to start off by saying that you know, they always say never give a tribal leader a microphone because they'll talk forever. But
Well,
you
we
know
have a
what?
timer, so you
But
see
know
that
what?
though, right?
But you know what? That's not our fault. That's the government's fault. They've kept us quiet for so long. Now it's our time to speak.
There you go. Take up space.
Now it's our time to speak. And we have no time limit. So, I just wanted to start off with that because, again, sometimes, you know, that's some of the problems that we have in different areas, you know, especially with voting and again, passing information is like we're limited. You know, we are having to fight that, and it's tough. And so we're finally at the table. We're finally doing what we need to do. You know, my first experience in voting and really trying to understand what, you know, it meant for tribes to get involved and to be part of the process of again, determining our way of life was back in the early 70s. I was, unfortunately, my mom and dad did not raise me. I was raised by my grandparents, which is a great thing. I was blessed to be able to be raised by my grandfather, who was everything to me growing up, and he was chairman back in the 70s. So I learned so much from him. But I remember sitting at the dinner table every night, and there was a picture hanging above our dinner table of the late John F. Kennedy and his wife, Jacqueline. And so I really tried to understand who it was and the concept. And finally, as I got old enough, my grandfather told me, you know, that, you know, we are Democrats. But there's Republicans who are also, you know, good people. And you heard, you know, President Nez say, you know, what happened to the days is where we all work together, Republicans and Democrats across the aisle for the people, the cause. So I started to learn that concept, but, you know, again, I was instilled as a Democrat. I do obviously bleed blue, you know, during the voting times and whatnot. And, you know, again, it's, you know, just to understand, you know, how important it really is for tribes to get involved. You know, unfortunately, you know, again, back in 1948, we were tribes and, you know, natives were allowed to vote. And you know, growing up, I didn't see much support when it was the voting cycle because, you know, I even though, you know, we were allowed to vote, you know, we were still kind of put on the back burners in a sense to where we kind of felt like we weren't important. I mean, we weren't really being reached out to. The precincts, we didn't have one. And so it was some trying times trying to get to vote and making our vote count and matter. And back then, and I speak for Ak-Chin, and from what I was, informed of by my grandfather was, we had these opportunities, but we didn't take advantage of them. And, by not taking advantage of voting at that time, and we were very small, it just felt like, we weren't doing our part. He felt like he wasn't doing his part to really push and advocate for how strong it meant for tribes to vote and his people to vote. So, so our voter turnout was very, very low. I mean, we felt like we didn't make a difference. And unfortunately, it led to different things, to, social issues, to where we didn't see improvement in our community. And so it led, and I saw it personally, a number of our elders and our members who unfortunately had to, go to the bottle and drown their sorrows and their hurt and their suffering and their pain. So I saw that, and we lost a lot of members to alcoholism, and a lot of things played a role in it, but I know voting also played a role in it, because again, they didn't do their part, they felt, to make a difference for our community. So as I grew up and I moved forward, I come to understand that, we need to do more to educate our people of what voting really, really means for us. And so it's important to do a lot of outreach, to do a lot of door-to-door, and encourage our members to go out and vote, that we can make a difference. Although we're minimal, we're small, every single vote counts. And it'll eventually play a key role as we move on. So as we fast forward today, again, that's some of the conversations I have with our members who are reluctant or who don't want to vote because, they feel like they're not still making a difference or going to make a difference. I said, it doesn't matter, just go out and vote. And I'm a Democrat, and you're probably never going to hear this from me again, but 8 years ago, we ended up having an administration with former President Trump, and so after his 4 years, and I said, for me, Ak-Chin, it was like, thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Donald Trump, because of you and your outrageousness and who you are and what you believe in. We had the highest number of voter turnout and registration in our community 4 years ago. And a lot of it was the youth that came out. They're watching, they're listening, they're experiencing some of these negativities that are going on. And so you add your comments and your thoughts overall to your membership. 8 years ago, 12 years ago, when President Obama was in office, he initiated the Native American Summit in D.C., where all tribes invaded Washington, D.C., and he supported that for his 8 years. President Trump comes in, that went away. President Biden came in, that came back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so my thing really is, again, it tells us as natives who's supporting the communities overall. We've seen a big difference. We've seen a big change. Obviously, it was mentioned that Secretary Terry Haaland got in. And, in my 11 years in leadership, I've seen it progress, and I've seen it strengthen, and I've seen more natives participating and running for office, not just in Arizona, but throughout the United States. So we are making a difference. We are taking those initiatives to take and try to take some of these seats, and we will. And we will. And so, what I'm very, very proud of in my community is like our registration to vote has gone up primarily with our younger members. And again, it's because they know now that we're making trends and we're striding to make sure that we are a voice to be heard, and we will make a difference. 4 years ago, we turned the state from a red to a blue. We did our job, and it's going to happen again this year. But one of the things that really we have to be cognizant of is that because natives did make a difference from turning the state from a red to a blue, we're going to be challenged this year again. If we win, I'm not going to say if, when we win, there's going to be challenges. We know that. But again, understand and know we did our job. We made a difference 4 years ago, and we'll make a difference again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So it sounds like empowerment of your community, educating your community on the importance and how what their vote does turns into how thriving the community could be. And one of the things I want to point out too, my role at Thunderbird is the nerd behind the scenes that normally deals with the data, the policy, and the law. So I often see that our statistic looks low. But my favorite saying is, we may be statistically insignificant, but we are politically significant. And so I think that's something also from the empowerment perspective that we want to make sure our Native voters know too. Councilman Meadart, do you want to talk about a couple of priorities? We have a couple minutes. I want to make sure to get to everybody, so just a few minutes about your priorities.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the main priorities that we're facing right now amongst our community is just the preservation of our ways. And so we talk a lot about, what it means to be a Quetzal person and what, our history has taught us and moving forward, into today's times. And, that really leads us to our decision making today. We look back at our past and we look at the injustices that have been done to our people. And so one of the things that we've talked a lot about over this past year, we launched a campaign in January to protect the Quetzal National Monument. And so the Quetzal National Monument is about 390,000 acres of federally controlled land that is just adjacent to the west and north of our reservation, and it's an area of critical environmental concern, and it has all these other things attached to it from the U.S. government. But every 20 years, we have to fight off these mining corporations that come in and they want to drill and pothole and desecrate the lands of the Quetzal people. And those lands are directly tied to our creation and our dissension down from our place of origin at Aviquime in South Nevada. And so this is, just today's, modern fight against the surrounding area encroaching on our tribal homelands. And so the protection of those lands has been, on the forefront of what we're fighting for as a nation more recently. But we also, face the same issues like you had mentioned, Chairman Miguel. I was born just a few years after you, but we know that, voting historically has been, very low within our community. And we see it, from the presidential election all the way down to our tribal elections. And more often than not, people talk about, how their voices aren't heard. But for me, being in a younger generation, I have to remind the people within my generation that if we don't speak up, then you're never going to be heard, and closed mouths never get fed. And so just getting that understanding and having that teaching for our people has been of the greatest priority to us, because we understand now that, the table is being set and tribes are now being invited, way too late to the table. But as Native people, we need to understand that we're not just being invited to the table's set in our house. And so we need to be there at the forefront to make sure that we have our voices heard, and there's no one else to blame but us if we don't get out there and hit those polls and really make our voices heard.
Thank you so much. Yes, language and culture are the nucleus of who we are as Indigenous people.
Okay, I'm next. All right, well, let me read to you a little bit about voting rights that Fort McDowell had played a pivotal role. We have 2 tribal members who played a pivotal role in securing the right to vote for Native Americans in Arizona. Frank Harrison and Harry Austin are Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation tribal members and World War II veterans. They were denied the right to vote in Arizona in 1948 due to a state law that deemed Native Americans living on reservations as wards of the state. Despite this, their case was the turning point. The 1924 Indian Citizenship Act granted U.S. citizenship to Native Americans, but many states, including Arizona, continue to use the legal barriers to prevent them from voting. This type of thing that occurred had, just think of everything, how this had affected our people. I tell my mother, who was born in the 1930s, and also my father was born in the 1930s, that when they were born, they didn't have the right to vote. So when you think about it, we are the first generation. So that is amazing. You think it's been a long time? It hadn't been a long time. So this is something we're very proud of both of our tribal members stepping up. In 1948, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled in their favor, striking down the ban on Native American voting in Arizona. This landmark decision allowed Native Americans in Arizona to fully participate in elections and set a precedent for similar changes in other states. So this just proves, you know, look at our people and what they have done in the past so that we can vote today. So with voting and to sign up to vote, the deadline's coming October 7th. So we need to get people to vote. We need to talk to our relatives at home. And myself, I'm having a community meeting this evening, and this is one thing I'm going to tell them. And as was mentioned, it's easy to do. You go online, everybody has a smartphone, right? If not, you know, usually you can just go right into Service Arizona, which we recommend it because that's how you get your driver's license. Many people have driver's license. So you can go in that way. So several of my relatives had voted that way. So I think it's getting the vote out, and organizations like this and many others throughout Arizona who have materials or have get the vote out activities. So doing that sort of activity is so important. So for me, it's getting the vote out now. We only have a week, you know, because it's next Monday is the deadline to register to vote. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that also with my background, I am, I guess, third generation elected official with the tribe because my father, Clinton Patia, he was the president prior. He was in service for 44 years, I think in all the positions. And, but he passed, but also his father, Felix Patia, was also in council. And at one time, they were in council together. So you had a father and son, and now I'm third generation to follow. A little bit about myself. I do have background working within the federal government because I was an Indian Health Service employee, but also being a nurse. I worked at Phoenix Indian Medical Center, Gallup Indian Medical Center when I first was practicing in nursing. Then I went on to Arizona State University and received my master's in nursing administration. So I became a health director of my tribe. So that's when I really started becoming familiar with the politics of and working with the tribal council, but also with the state, the county, the federal government at the level representing our tribe for health services. Then I went on to the Phoenix area office, and actually I helped plan the Fort Yuma facility. So you probably were still in school, but I worked with, I believe it was President Mike Jackson, and at the time, and also Chairwoman Cordova with COCOPA. So I helped them with their facility, also the Salt River River people, and Fort San Carlos. So those were the three other health facilities that I assisted with to get the funding, and they are up and going and operational, so I'm very proud of that. But also from there, I worked at the Indian Health Service headquarters under Dr. Yvette Rubidoux under the Obama administration. There, that's when I learned more about the federal response, but also tribal consultation. President Obama had an executive order that actually was reinstated. Prior presidents had also had it, but it hadn't been utilized to its fullest. So President Obama had tribal consultation requirements for all the departments. Now today, in my current position as president, we're inundated with emails from all sorts of federal agencies for tribal consultation, which is great. I mean, we're finally at the table. I mean, I think IHS, HHS, and BIA, Department of Interior, they always had been working with natives, with tribes, right? But now we have all sorts of other areas now asking for our input. And that was something that I did when I was working with Dr. Rubidoux, is doing tribal consultation at the headquarters level. So I'm familiar with it, I'm glad they're doing it, and it goes back to voting. We have to vote. We have to encourage our young people to vote. They need to see that their vote counts in order to make change. Also, the data that we as tribes submit to the federal government helps us to get funding. So we also need to open our enrollment get people enrolled, the young people enrolled. And I know our tribe has a challenge with our constitution. That's something, my priority is to get more of our young people to become tribal members. So, but that's something else, another issue, but it does involve having us be more active in that area. And so that, for me, is something, a priority that we're working on. But get the vote out, encourage your people. 18, is the voting age. So definitely the young people are important, and they see what's happening. Their social media, and they're seeing all sorts of different issues and viewpoints. So they need to do their research too.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
absolutely. The 18 to 26-year-olds, like you mentioned earlier, are a key voter population, and they're actually the fastest growing voter base within Indian country. And we learned through the 2020 census that, that's the population that we definitely want to make sure that we're reaching. So reaching out to young folks is important. We've got about 1 minute each person for these next questions, so want to make sure that we get to everybody here. So I know we just got off of the topic of healthcare, and thank you so much for sharing your expansive background in that. I'm curious for you, you'd mentioned a lot of alcoholism in your community. So what types of policy priorities would you like anyone sitting in a decision-making seat to understand about the needs that tribal communities, specifically yours, I don't expect you to speak on behalf of everyone's, but what do you think they can do to help prioritize behavioral and mental health care within our communities?
Well, I just think it's a matter of these political figures who are in office or going to be in office to come and visit and see firsthand what we're dealing with and how we can work together as far as a conversation and coming up with a solution, or just again some problem solving overall. And so again, it's I've always said that in my 11 years traveling to DC and visiting with leaders, whether it's in the state or nationally, come and see us.
Yeah,
come
absolutely.
and hear from us firsthand.
Meet us where we are.
And so, and I just want to add to that really quick is that Governor Waltz from Minnesota, who's I believe they're debating today. Today they're having
there's
a
a
debate.
couple watch parties happening out around town.
Well, I'll tell you what. I just again for Governor Waltz in January of this year, Governor Hobbs's team reached out to myself and Governor Lewis and asked if we would meet with Governor Waltz in Tempe or Scottsdale. I'm sorry. And so we decided to do it. But again, this was way before there was even consideration and thought of him being selected as a running mate for Vice President Harris. But Governor Waltz wanted to come to Arizona to meet with myself and Governor Lewis to see how her cabinet was working with tribes, because when Governor Hobbs got into office, she created a cabinet to work with tribes. And so that's what Governor Waltz wanted to do with Minnesota. So I was really, really appreciative of that and how he was committed to wanting to work with tribes in his state. So
That's
I
right.
just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. Governor Walz, if a lot of people don't know, he's actually a leader in indigenous partnerships within the state of Minnesota. And because of those strong partnerships, one of the things in terms of our missing and murdered indigenous peoples, Minnesota was one of the first places to ever be funded by the Department of Justice to have an office. And the issue is staffing the office. We need to build capacity within Indian country, but that requires funding, which requires a vote to make sure that we have people sitting in those positions that are going to advocate for funding to ensure that we have the resources we need for implementation. Thank you so much for that.
And again, I just wanted to mention that he did it way before there was ever consideration.
He was
of
the
him being-
first, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Councilman Midar, selfishly, I sit as your communications campaign director for the Quechan National Monument. So I want to go to Lands and Sacred Places with you because one of the things that the Quechan Indian tribe is advocating for as part of the National Monument designation is co-stewardship and co-management. Can you talk a little bit more with us about how tribal communities can and are leading in environmental and conservation?
Well, absolutely. So the way that we've taken the approach is attempting to get this monument done under the Antiquities Act, which would provide us co-stewardship opportunities. But co-stewardship just means that we have a seat at the table and we get to give input, right? And so we know that we want to move further than that and have introduced legislation to give us the authority under Congress to co-manage the lands and to be co-equal decision makers within the lands that we've stewarded since time immemorial. And so we know that we're the best caretakers of these lands, and the government, has had an issue taking care of the lands that we've, stewarded all these times. But when it comes to, being able to truly co-manage, it really comes back to our ability to vote and the people that we put in those offices, because those types of opportunities will not happen if we don't have people in there who know anything about the tribes. And so I've said all over this country that if you know one tribe, then you know one tribe. We all do things completely different. We have our own self-governance, and we choose to do things different, based off of our own beliefs, based off of our own religion and our own experiences. And so just to your point, Chairman, it really takes coming out to our communities, learning something about our people, and trying to understand. And we understand that everyone won't know everything about us by the time that they leave, but having a true meaningful consultation is what it will take for you to be able to go back and to make a solid decision on policy that is going to affect us as a people. And so just like, with anything that's, having to do with this election cycle, we truly need that real consultation, that meaningful consultation, where we're really, really being heard.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Raul Grijalva, who chairs Natural Resources, has been a champion for a bill called the Respect Act for a handful of years now. And essentially what that does is codifying tribal consultation, and right now the bill is stalled within this particular Congress. So that's what tells you that those elected officials can either move or pause what we have going on and really inhibit our ability to have tribal sovereignty. And on that note, you started to speak about tribal consultation. You started to speak about, essentially tribal consultation is helping us to exert our tribal sovereignty. So what is it that you would say to policymakers about what they need to do to ensure that they're strengthening this process with us and for us?
Yes, thank you for the question. But before I answer that, let me mention Governor Waltz in Minnesota. Isn't there a deputy governor? She is Native American.
Yes.
If he gets into office, she moves up as governor.
And she
So
would
we
be
gotta
the
vote.
first, she would be the first
She'd be the
Native
first
American governor
Native American
ever.
governor.
Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who is also an advocate for Native vote and
Right.
has changed the game in a lot of ways. So yes, absolutely.
that's another
Minnesota's
powerful
leading
point.
over here. Let's catch up, Arizona. Come on.
Yes. So about tribal consultation and policy, I think that's where the tribes, you have opportunity either to show up. Now they're doing a lot of webinars, different departments depending on different policies that come out, so you can comment, review it, or also I've noticed that most of the federal agencies have created an email address, which I just started because I was part of the work group with the tribal leaders. We had the IHS at consultation.gov. Now they're doing the same thing, but for whatever department at consultation.gov. So there are many opportunities. I know the staff of departments review that information, but it does go to Congress.
Yes.
So Congress and Senate, they're the ones who do receive that information. They hopefully review it. If not, their staff are. But that's where tribes need to make comments. So take that opportunity on. Maybe you can't go to the meeting. Maybe you can't go to the hearing. But there are other opportunities that are set up now, which I'm very grateful for that we should. And again, data's everything. I mean, our data, report it, the grants we get, or either comments on how distribution. The other thing I know when I was on the federal side, I would tell the departments and tell them, you guys need to have a carve out for Native Americans, meaning that you set aside funds and say, these are for the 500 plus tribes, because there's 500 plus. So I'm just saying that instead of us competing with everybody else throughout the United States, even the world, because some of this funding goes elsewhere, they need to carve it out for Native Americans. So I'm just letting you know that's the kind of thing we've advocated, and even as a tribe, we would advocate the same thing.
Absolutely, yes. And last year, for the first time since IHS inception, we were able to achieve advance appropriations. And now we need to continue sitting at that table to ensure that we are plussing up the line item. To your point, we are not trying to take from rural and urban pieces of the pie. We are trying to make the pie bigger because that is our inherent right and the federal trust responsibility for that. So I appreciate you helping us to end on that note. And I just wanted to appreciate you all for coming up today and sharing your time with us. And I know we've got a COLT board meeting to call to order here. And we'll have Councilman Meadart stay with us to talk about that resolution. So give our tribal leaders a hand over here, and we'll take a pause before the meeting starts.
If I can make a final comment, it's been mentioned that we finally have a seat at the table. Understand, we are the table.
And even further than that, I just want everyone to know that if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So please, please be there.
set this here. Test, 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 test. 1 Gila, 2 Gila. We're going to actually, the Coalition of Large Tribes is one of the hosts for this event. And so when we first started, we called the COLT meeting into session. We recessed when we were in Nevada. And so what we did is we carried the COLT meeting onto here. And then when we're done here, we're going to take COLT to Wisconsin and do the same thing. What we have today is we're going to be talking about a resolution for COLT to support. And so the chairman, where'd he go? Tracy Ching King is going to call the meeting to order. And Lisa, can you hear us? Can we turn that volume up a little bit? All right, try it again. Lisa, go ahead. Yes, loud and clear. Lisa is our treasurer. I'm going to introduce you real quick, Lisa. Lisa's our treasurer for the Coalition of Large Tribes. She's also the vice president of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. And I'm looking around here to see if I can see our president. Her name is Kathy Woodenknife. In the whole course of our history on the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, this was the first election where we had, the tribal members elected a female president and a female vice president. So she used to be a council member. She was there for many years, and now she is our vice president, but she is also the treasurer of the Coalition of Large Tribes. Lisa, you want to introduce yourself? Thank you. And then I'd like to introduce Tracy Ching King. I don't know if you noticed the other day, but you know, this morning on our crew, our other worker, his name's Harlan, but he was, like I said, he's a junior, so he was given the nickname of Chun. So we had pictures taken of them both together, so we have Chung King and Ching Chung. So with that, I want to introduce our president, or our chairman of the Coalition Large Tribe, Tracy Ching King.
Good morning. I said in the Assiniboine language, my name is Holy White Horse. I'm named after my great-great-grandfather, who was a medicine person, healer, and a white horse always followed him wherever he went. So one of the things, just before we get started, I really am impressed with the young people that are here, you know, because they are our future. And some of us are survivors of boarding school, you know, and my grandfather on my dad's side, he was born in 1889, as they say. They didn't have no record of his birth, but he only spoke his language. And he was sent to Carlisle Indian School. It's like 1,950 miles from home. And so him and three, at the age of 9 or 10, they ran away from Carlisle. And so he, it took him 6 months to get home. And so you think of, two of them made it, him and his cousin, and one of them didn't. And today, I don't know where the third one went to, but You could only imagine somebody that's 9 or 10 years old, not knowing any English but their own language and surviving, So you look at that and think about that, of how resilient our people are and what they have went through. And so, our clan is a no retreat group clan. And so, coming from a Gold Star family and looking at that, my uncle was killed in World War II, and my nephew is a Purple Heart recipient of the Iraqi war. And my daughter she's a combat vet. So, and my brother was left for dead in Vietnam, and he was gone for 2 weeks. He was missing in action. And so my mother used to cry for 2 weeks till she found out that he was alive, but he survived the jungles of Vietnam. So 20 years ago in this month, he had this letter, and he was shaking. And he said, "Here, Ching, read this." And so when he was shaking, I read the letter, and it was from a Vietnam family from Seattle, Washington. Said in the letter, it said, "My uncle is a farmer in Vietnam, and his daughter found these. And so she said, 'What shall I do with these? Return them back to the rightful owner.'" So he had his tags, military tags, that he was the only one that survived in his platoon, and he was shaken because he found those, he got his dog tags back, So that's, something like that really is very powerful, and our people are resilient. Thank you, but I just wanted to share that. But I'm going to call this meeting back out of recess, and we have one resolution. And I'm going to have.
Yes. I know you just talked for a half hour, but please reintroduce yourself.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Okay, thank you very, very much for, allowing me the opportunity to speak about something that is so important to us. And so my name is Donald Meadart Jr., and I'm a councilman with the Fort Yuma Quechan Indian Tribe. We're located in Southern California and in Southwest Arizona. We border Mexico. So I always like to say, we're the Quechan Nation surrounded by the United States, and we border Mexico too. And so we're a nation of about 4,000. We're proposing a national monument, the Quechan National Monument, which encompasses about 390,000 acres of land that is directly adjacent to our reservation. Our people, the Quechan people, we descended from Aviquame in southern Nevada, which is our spirit mountain. That's our place of origin. That's where our Creator created us, along the banks of the Colorado River. And we descended down through the area, through the Mojave Desert, through the present-day Coachella Riverside area, and then we made our descension even further down past, what was Lake Cahuilla at the time, but is now the Salton Sea, to the place that we currently inhabit along the banks of the Colorado River, and that's always been the lifeblood of our people. So along these areas, we have many trail systems that, used to take us down to the Sea of Cortez on trading routes, all the way up back to our place of origin at Aviquame, and even further than that up to Mount Shasta. And so there are various trails that are contained within the area, and along the way, our people left their identifiers. We have petroglyphs, geoglyphs, rock formations, and as well as the trails themselves. But even more important than that, we still have spiritual trails that traverse these areas, and we're one of the very few tribes that still practice our cremation ceremony that was given to us by a Creator. And so with that, our smoke takes these spirit trails back to our place of origin, and that's how we get back to the place that we ultimately call home. And so these areas are of the utmost importance to us. There are many, many items contained within the desert. But I think, for me as a father, the most important thing to me is being able to go out with my children and to look at these items. And we have songs that talk about our dissension through this area. We have songs that talk about our migration from our place of origin that led us down to that area. And for me to, be one of the people who sing these songs and to pass these on to my sons, but also be able to go out into the desert and to point out these individual items, the mountain peaks and all these identifiers, and even the trails, and point those out and show tangible evidence that these are the songs that we've been singing for thousands of years, but this is the truth. This is the religion of the Quechan people, and to be able to go out and show that. For more people than not, they have to go across the world to show their place of origin, but for us, it's out there in that desert. And so we want to protect these lands. We look at some of the trails that are there, and I just think about the thousands, tens of thousands of, my people who traverse that area and beat these trails into the desert. They're still evident today, and just the amount of, force that took from my people moving through there, the pottery sherds that are out there, and all the artifacts, as they're called now. But those were markers left by my people to outline the trails that were there for all of us to traverse at one time or another. And so, like I said, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for hearing, and considering this resolution. This resolution isn't just, something that this campaign rather isn't just something that we put out there because we wanted to, have this area for our own control, but this area is going to be protected for the religious freedoms of the Quechan people, for us to continue to go out in these deserts and practice our religion as the Quechan people. And so, people like to refer to these types of things as stories. But, I've been corrected on that myself. I would say, our creation story. But I've been corrected by the older people in my tribe who say that, when you attach a word like a story, it makes it sound like a fable, like something that's not true, but that's something that we know to be true. And we have the proof right here. And so, it's our religion, and it truly is that. And so, by passing this, I'm asking that you pass this resolution today for the protection of the Quechan way of life and for the protection of the religion of the Quechan people and the people of the river corridor. So thank you very much for your time.
See, you want to give an outline of what the resolution is?
Me again. Yes, so the resolution is asking the coalition of large tribes to support us in protecting the 390,000 acres of land, and asking and calling on President Biden to use his authority under the Antiquities Act to ensure that this land is protected. It is only one way of protecting this space. We are going to pursue legislation to ensure that we can get this codified, but in the interim, we're asking and calling on the Coalition of Large Tribes to help us to not only call on President Biden, but to also just continue to support us and land preservation and cultural preservation at all. Yeah.
So I'll move to approve that resolution. Is there a second? Lisa? Yes. Okay. We have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. So now we're going back into recess, and thank you for listening to my story. Anyway, Panamia.
All right, thank you, Treasurer White Pipe. We really appreciate you taking the time off to attend this meeting. You know, one thing we're going to get back in the program, but I want to tell you about the Coalition of Large Tribes. When we do resolutions, we don't just like file them in a file cabinet somewhere. We have tribes in Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, South Dakota, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and we are growing every day. In order to be a member of the Coalition of Large Tribes, you have to have 100,000 acres or more of land. Of the 574 federally recognized tribes, 52 tribes meet that criteria. Those 52 tribes control 90 to 95% of the land. They also have half the population, and they control 85% of the minerals, the resources. And so I'm sorry, we also have a footprint in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And so when we pass these resolutions, we don't, like I said, we don't just file them. What we do is we reach out to every congressional individual that's within the COLT territory. And we send them these resolutions showing that we support this and stand by the issues that we identify in that resolution. So it's not just one of those where you come up to us and say, okay, we'll pass it. We also take and make sure that every congressional person within our territories are notified. And I say that because there's tribes out there, although our main purpose is to focus on large land-based tribes, I can tell you that almost every day, every issue, it's the same. And so there's times where we've had tribes or organizations come in and, you know, request help, and we've done it. There's times where they've come in and request help, and we haven't, because what we look at is the overall benefit for all tribes. And so if you ever have an issue where you need some type of support, you get a hold of the Coalition of Large Tribes. You put in Large Tribes on the browser and it'll pick it up. But I mean, we're here to help. As an organization, we're here to help all tribes. And you're going to hear a little bit about some of the things we have been doing with Congress, with Treasurer. These are some issues that haven't ever even been approached for 100 years. And we have been able to move that needle on it. So with that, I'm going to pull out my schedule and try to get back on it. And by the way, the reason we're off schedule is Lycia's fault. Okay. Is Dal next? Urban? Oh, okay. Well, you got to understand Dal. He's a counsel for the Coalition of Large Tribes, and he was the acting Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs during the Obama administration. So we get to push him around. So with that, we have the Urban Indian Voices, and it's going to be moderated by Jacob Moore. Can you all come up, please? Thank you. I'll get out of everybody's way.
Skokseda, good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning. It's good to see you all here. Skokseda, Anya Pchugik, Jacob Moore, Anya Pchugik, Lakota, Dakota, Akamadatam, Tanatam. My name is Jacob Moore. I'm the Vice President and Special Advisor to President Crow at Arizona State University. It's an honor to have the opportunity to be the moderator for such a talented group of panelists. And today we're going to talk about the Urban Indian Voices Matter. Again, I know that this is about preparing for this next election. And I appreciate those that are here because we know that this is a group that is actively involved in making sure that our communities are represented and our voices are heard. And our speakers are well suited to help not only share their own perspective, but also give you the words that are necessary when you're in your own communities to continue the work, to be able to continue the message in terms of what's important when it comes to these elections. I'll keep my introduction short. I'm between you all and lunch, but I think we have enough time to get through this before noon, and we'll still stay to our 45 minutes. I know we fell behind a little bit, but it's what it's supposed to be. So again, thank you to the Association of large land-based tribes. I'm actually a member of at least one or two of them, I think. I'm a citizen of the Tanatam Nation, the Chukukuk district in southern Arizona, but my mother is from Montana. And so, and then her mother was from Cheyenne River in South Dakota. So the Lakota, Dakota on my mother's side. My grandfather is from Fort Peck in northeastern Montana. And on my dad's side, my grandmother was from a village called Pozo Verde, which is on the other. Tanatam are on both sides. We didn't cross the border crossed us, and so we have a lot of land base in Mexico. And then my grandfather's from Gila River, actually from District 6, but originally they were in Blackwater, and I don't know how they ended up on the other end of the reservation, but they started in Blackwater. So I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I think part of the reason why Juliana suggested that this might be a worthy topic for me to help moderate is that I grew up in the Tanatam Nation in Sells, but we moved to high school when I was in Tempe. Did I say that right? I moved to Tempe where I went to high school. And my dad got actively involved. He had graduated from ASU, got his degree in education with a minor in Indian Ed. We went down to live in his community for a number of years, and then we came back to Tempe. And I was pretty much around the urban population for a good part of my earlier years. My father served on the Phoenix Indian Center board. He tricked me into getting on the Phoenix Indian Center board when I was 19 years old, and I've been serving in nonprofits ever since. And so I spent quite a bit of time working with urban Indian communities. I was on the board for Native Health for 12 out of 15 years, which is a community health clinic. And then actually went back and finished my degree and started working with tribes. So I did the government affairs here in Salt River, and again, my wife is from here, from this community, and it's just amazing to see what this tribe has been able to do with its resources, and again, given its location. But clearly none of that happened without, political efforts in elections, in years past. So I feel a little bit of, kind of an OG, old school in terms of what we were doing 20 years ago around elections. But I know that these are really important, and regardless of the size of the folks that we have here in the room, I know that you're all committed to this, and I know that you have communities that stand behind you, so we appreciate your being here. And we're going to jump into the session and then, again, really share information that I think is important to our own communities and to make sure that we're energizing our communities with this election right around the corner. Our panelists, and I'll introduce them, and let's give them a round of applause. The first one is Juliana Begay Krupa. Then we have Hope Greg Corlew. Is that right? Okay. And we have Janine Comino. And I'm going to go ahead and read their bios, and then I'll give them a little bit of time. I know I'm not going to do Juliana's clans. I'll let her do her own clans in the NE. But Juliana is currently resides in the Phoenix metro area, where she is the Chief Executive Officer for the Phoenix Indian Center. And in addition to her work at the Phoenix Indian Center, she currently teaches the Navajo language classes at Arizona State University and at Stanford University. She also taught for Harvard University and Yale University. Language is her passion, and she is an advocate for the importance of language revitalization. She has 3 beautiful children, and of note, she was also the 50th Miss Navajo Nation in 2001, 2002. So. Next, we have Hope Craig, and Hope serves as the board chairwoman for the United American Indian Involvement and a member of the ASU Go Devils American Indian Policy Institute Fall 2024 cohort of the Indigenous Leadership Academy. And Hope is a proud Muskogee of the Muskogee Nation of Oklahoma, is a dedicated professional and community leader. She's part of the contracts administration team at the University of Southern California. Hope is married and has 2 adult children. Her husband and director is IT security, director of IT security at UCLA Anderson School of Management. Her daughter is an attorney specializing in federal Indian law, and her son is an artist specializing in character and content creation for gaming and web development. For the last 15 years, she's worked extensively with urban Indian communities, organizations, and tribal nations in policy making, community building, leadership, and tribal governance. She's a graduate of the University of Arizona with a Bachelor of Arts in Law, and she's continuing her legal education at the Sandra Day O'Connor Law School at Arizona State University, focusing on tribal governance. This would make her a sun cat. You know, it's a combination of wildcat and sun devil. Her goal is to become a tribal judge to further her advocacy for Indian country. Hope is committed to advocating for natives living in centers, in urban centers, and strengthening partnerships with tribal nations, urban Indian organizations, and native organizations. Again, let's give another round of applause to Hope Craig Harlew. And our third panelist is Janine Cominote. Janine is a citizen of the Quinault Indian Nation and founding executive director of the National Urban Indian Family Coalition, a national coalition representing 55 urban Indian nonprofits in more than 40 cities and over 3 million Native Americans living away from their traditional homelands. I wish it was 30 million, but 3 million is still a good number. Democracy is Indigenous Initiative, DII, is the largest and flagship program at the National Urban Indian Family Coalition. Democracy and Indigenous is, or actually that, I should say that right, democracy is indigenous, I think is the point, is that democracy certainly was founded, you know, as an indigenous concept before the founding forefathers of the United States. So democracy is indigenous is a national funding, technical assistance, and coalition building mechanism to distribute critically needed financial and human resources to urban Indian community-based organizations and to engage in locally driven civic and voter engagement work. Since the inception of the initiative in 2018, NUIFC has invested over $10 million in 25 local urban Indian nonprofits in 23 cities who have collectively registered over 70,000 new voters, engaged 480,000 individuals, hosted 680 voter events, and recorded 40 million social media engagements. The North Star of democracy is indigenous will always be to bring organizations together and to create change for themselves in order to improve the lives of urban Native families. Janine is an Aspen Institute Ascend Fellow, alumni of the prestigious Americans for Indian Opportunity Ambassador Program, and was chosen and highlighted in Oprah's magazine for her participation in Women Rule, 80 Women Who Could Change America. She is the recipient of the Potlatch Fund, Fran James Cultural Preservation, and EcoTrust Indigenous Leadership Awards for her work with urban Indians. Additionally, she has been a Human Rights Commissioner for the City of Seattle and currently a board member for the Marguerite Casey Foundation and the Philanthropic Initiative for Racial Equity, and sits on the External Diversity and Inclusion Council for Charter Communications. So again, we're honored to have this group of esteemed panelists, and why not? Let's give them one more applause and then we'll jump into the questions. So. Test. I made sure I wore my Tatanka socks today, so hopefully you'll get to see the wardrobe. Let's jump into these questions. Where did they go? And what I'm going to do is each of our panelists have submitted some questions, and they may get their question, they may not. And then we're going to do a second round and kind of get specifically into terms of why do urban Indians matter in elections. So I'm going to start with Hope, and your first question is on, let's see, what do you believe is the biggest barriers to urban Indian individuals accessing and receiving appropriate services, including social services? Sorry, I threw you off because that wasn't your question. So.
Is it on? I think I'm on now. Can you guys hear me okay? No? Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you repeat that question again, please?
So the question is, I forgot what question I asked you. So what do you believe is the biggest barriers to urban Indian individuals in accessing and receiving appropriate services or social services in particular?
For what we're experiencing now, it's really transportation. Say, for instance, in Los Angeles County, we serve the largest urban center across the nation. Allegedly, according to the 2020 census, we have probably 180,000 plus. Is that right, Licia? 250,000. Well, okay, that's. Yes, so we have the largest urban population in LA County. The problem is our center is located in, say, right outside of downtown LA. But in Los Angeles County, we're spread out. You can be Long Beach, San Pedro, Bellflower. So to be able to access our services, it's a barrier because now you have to, I always say, you have to take a train, boat, plane just to get to us. So they're going to go and probably choose, our community members will go elsewhere. So it's really access. So how we are evolving now is now through satellite offices. So now we have to start considering where we want to be positioned so that our community members can have access. Because of the cost of living in County of LA is so expensive, we're starting to move further out. But we have to evolve with those times. So now what we are looking at again is creating these satellite offices so that we can, it's not them having access to us, it's bringing now our services to the community. So now we're having to pivot. I think that answers the question. Okay.
Okay. And again, I think it's important to recognize the demographics of our urban Indian populations in the multiple cities across the country. You know that we do have over 50% of our native population that reside off the reservation, and oftentimes they do go back and forth to their home communities, particularly here in Arizona. But these urban centers do serve a large number of our native voters and community members. I'm going to move to Juliana. Juliana, your question is about cultural disconnection. And what are some of the challenges that urban natives face being disconnected from their communities and traditions, and how does this impact the mental health and overall well-being of both our families and those communities in which they reside?
Thank you for that question, and thank you all for being here once more. I also want to thank Hope and Janine, who came from Seattle. Hope does live here, but has representation and info to share about LA Indian Center. And then, of course, Jake being in the community. So I grew up on the nation and moved to the city to go to school and then to go back. But that never happened. I'm still here over 20 years later. And many others are in that same path. They leave the reservation to go to school or to find a job and stay here in the city. And over time, you know, you feel almost a disconnect that starts to occur for the thousands of relatives that we interface with. Many of our relatives would love to go home, back to their ancestral homelands, but aren't able to. You know, for various different reasons, it's just not possible. And the number of relatives that we've talked to over the years that I've been at the Indian Center, you know, some will indicate, oh gosh, it's been almost 20 years since I've gone home back to my, you know, ancestral space. And that, the question of what does it mean to be indigenous in an urban space comes up all the time. And even for me, as the CEO, as a relative who engages pretty heavily with the community, there are many times where I really miss my own upbringing, the language, the culture, the ceremonies, the food, the elders, the smell of just being on the res. I miss it from time to time. And I feel there's, you know, this, there's a part of me that is there, and I use that as motivation for us at the center, because if I'm feeling this way, then many others also feel this way. And so we at the Phoenix Indian Center try really hard to provide opportunities for us to stay engaged and to learn our cultural ways, whatever that looks like, whether it be just through simple storytelling, learning about the differences in basketry, learning about the different winter stories that occurs, bow and arrow making, beadwork. These opportunities bring the relatives together to interface and interact with one another. That's a form of healing, but also to learn about who we are and to hold on to that. That is really that foundational strength that helps many of our people. So, you know, knowing where you come from, knowing who you are, the likelihood of staying away from things like drugs and alcohol is better. And so at the center, that's one of the things that we really try to encourage and promote, is that language and culture preservation and revitalization efforts. And it is just really neat to see the smiling faces, the healed faces from many of those that attend. Even a round dance. Round dance is a social gathering that happens in the wintertime. We hold round dances here. It's not as common as it is up north. But when we held it one year, there's a gentleman who came. He came into the round dance in a wheelchair. And after several songs, he got up out of his wheelchair. He didn't join into the circle, but he stood next to it. And afterwards, he came and he found us. And he said, I was healed just by hearing these songs. I haven't gone home in years. And he's like, I miss all of my family. But he goes, and I didn't even think these songs would get me out of my chair, and it did. That was powerful. And that was for us, that's us bringing that culture and tradition here so that that disconnect goes away. It's a true strength that we hold on to and something that we want to encourage. And I'm sure in many of the other urban Indian centers and spaces, they want to encourage the same thing as well.
Sure, go ahead.
There's one perspective I would like to add to this as well, is that some of our relatives have been relocated to urban centers because of the Bureau of Indian Affairs American Indian Urban Relocation Act. That was my family. My family, my grandparents were relocated from Oklahoma to Arizona. So I grew up between Casa Grande and kind of Tucson area. You know you're from Casa Grande when you say Casa Grande. Those people who say Casa Grande, So, but that's my family. That is my family story, and I want to bring that story to the forefront because we don't talk about the other relocation. And because of that, there's been this loss. I know personally about that loss because I had to go on my own journey to find my way back home. Home was taught to me, that's language, culture, and traditions. You know, the things that was taken from my family because of relocation, I have reclaimed it all. I speak our language. I go back home to ceremony. When you talk about ceremony and healing, I was just back home a couple months ago for Stomp Dance. My dad is Steleshti, my mom is Stajati. Stajati is Native, my mother is Native and my father is Black. I took my father back home with me, and my father has never been on our ceremonial grounds. So my father was really learning what it meant to be the father of a Stajati. And so he brought him back, and he was on the ceremonial grounds with us, and we were in our circle stomp dancing. And my dad had been complaining about his knees hurting. He had been, you know, not able to walk or whatever. And again, this is all new to my dad. My dad has never been to our ceremonial grounds. And I came from out the circle, and I asked my husband, I says, where is my dad? He says, your dad got out there and danced. Trying to hold it together. But to see that, my father, who had been complaining about his knees, he went out there and he stomped dance. You know, it meant a lot to me because it was like, this is what this is all about. You know, for us at United American Indian Involvement, I often tell our leadership is that we're bringing people back, we're bringing our relatives back home. We're the bridge to home. So I do what Jelana does at Phoenix Indian Center, what Janine does. We're bringing our relatives back home to language, culture, and traditions. That is the significance of the work that we do in Indian country. But I just wanted to share that story. I mean, that just, it brings so much joy to my Figi, which is my heart, to know that I was able to share home with my father. So, Mado.
Thank you. Thank you, Hope. Let's go to Janine. The question is, what role can urban Native nonprofits play in ensuring that Native people are prepared to vote?
Okay, this works. So we know that well over half of all Native people live off the reservation, somewhere in the 70% range. So these Native nonprofits, one thing that's really good to know about them is that these places are more than just nonprofits. They provide more than social services. These are the cultural homes for many of our Native families. And most urban Native nonprofits in major cities, almost every major city in the United States has some kind of urban Indian organization that's serving the Native families there. So often these organizations have been around since the late 60s, early 70s, and Phoenix, it's one of the, I always let Phoenix and Chicago duke it out, but it's Phoenix and Chicago are the two, they're the two oldest Indian centers. But most of them have spent decades working with these Native families who really come great distances in every city across America to get these services. And again, it's not just social services, it is cultural services, it's a sense of home. Native people, we are land-based people. And so having a place to come that feels a little bit like home is such an important role. And to answer that specific question, the reason these urban centers are so uniquely situated to be able to engage the urban Native vote is that they know their community. Nobody else in any city across America can reach Native people in cities better than these urban nonprofit organizations. So often you're talking 50 years of working within community, and they have become the trusted messengers for our relatives who live in America's cities. So Part of the reason that we felt it was really important to engage these urban Native organizations, these community-based organizations in civic and voter engagement is really sitting right there, Sue Van. Is also to get to make sure that community-facing organizations were really interfacing with their communities, because everything in your life, every single one of us sitting in this room, interfaces with policy. So at some point, if you catch a bus, transportation policy. If you get social services, all kinds of different policies. So these organizations and these families really need that. And I'll end with the fact that these organizations, you know, like you read in my bio, we've registered over 70,000 new voters in America, new Native voters in America. And that's you know, 500 per year for all of our organizations. And when you have elections that are decided by 3,000 to 4,000 votes, and you have 177,000 people that live just in Maricopa County, Native people, that can decide elections all over America. So that's the reason that we felt it was really important to engage our urban relatives.
Thank you. I got a question that I think I'm going to pose to each of our speakers, and I'm going to change up the order a little bit. So I'll start with Juliana. The question is, who do you serve? Are you seeing generational differences when it comes to the populations you serve? Kind of to, you know, go off of the last question, and then what does your community look like, and how are you navigating, you know, through current issues and barriers? That sounds like more than one question. There's like 3 questions in there. But I think part of that is really to hone in on this idea of what is motivating our communities, and how would you encourage them to ensure that they vote, but also recognizing that you really have to break down the generational differences that you have within your population. So what are they, and what does your community look like, and how do you navigate through that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Yep, so Janine shared Maricopa County alone, we're at about 175,000. And I don't even think that that's accurate, right? Because our people, they didn't, especially this last census, there was a lot of our relatives that census and sending that in was the last thing, right, in comparison to the impacts of COVID. And so in the Phoenix area, well over 500 tribal nations are represented here. And at the Phoenix Indian Center, on an annual basis, we service about 9,500. So 9,500 people come through the doors utilizing any of our services. This is our direct service. On an annual basis, the tribal representation is right around 90 to 100. So it's well outside of the 22 that live here in Arizona. Oklahoma, the Midwest, all over, they're here in Phoenix. So we service not just the 22 tribes. We also have a very young population. We have a lot of young relatives. And so in doing our work, we at some point stopped what we were doing, took a look around, and we're like, we have no young people right here to help us with our marketing. Let's get a focus group and see, you know, is this resonate with you? And so we got some young people to give us feedback on some of the marketing material, and they're like, nope, I wouldn't look at that. I totally would not read that. You know, that to me is like 1800s, black and white. Why are you doing black and white? And all this really great feedback that then we use to switch up our marketing. But that told us right away, we've got to have the young people at the table continuously. Right now in the center, we have 40 team members. There's 40 of us, and a lot of them are young, really young, dedicated, motivated, workers that are excited and passionate to give back to our people. but they also have a perspective that's different from mine. And the way I think is not how they think. So it's really exciting to hear from them. One of the things, the strategies that we try to keep at the forefront is keep the young people in the dialoguing, because that's who we really have to reach out to, is the young people. So I don't know yesterday if you were here, there was the youth panel. Aiden is one of our team members. Like, you know, shout out to Aiden. She just is really growing in this work. She's a future leader. I already know it. But her and several other of our team members, they're young in mindset and the way that they are articulating what needs to be said, how it needs to be said, and preparing for our future is really just, it's amazing to me. I'm excited about it. We have to keep the young people in front of us as we move through the ways in which we're going to reach and get them to the polls.
So the last part of that question was what motivates them, what would encourage your community to come out and vote?
Yeah, so what encourages us, we are a hub away from our ancestral homelands. We're in this work together. So when we see an outreach table and you see some other relatives over there, the likelihood of you going over and having dialogue, you know, is higher. And so June, our civic engagement team, when they're out, they're really, you know, talking person to person, relative to relative, and not talking down at them, you know, but instead, you know, where are you registered? And including that we hold the dual citizenship. Even that resonates, that gets them motivated. Yeah, voting back up on Navajo is just as important as voting here. Let's talk about both and why they're important, right? Doing that educational outreach and sharing the whys of making sure we vote in our tribal elections, but why it's also important to vote here. And then limiting the barriers, so setting up voter registration during times that meet their schedules, so they do after-hour voting, during the weekends voting, or putting ourselves up at events that are already occurring in the community. I think the dialoguing with one another is one way that we're really motivating each other. Working alongside one another is also important. Moving in numbers, I think, is one of the ways in which we continue to motivate one another.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to turn to Hope, and Hope is the same question as first part is, who do you serve? Are you seeing generational differences in the population that you serve, and what does your community look like, and how do you navigate current issues and barriers that lead toward voting?
I believe who we primarily serve is probably, I think primarily adults, probably between the ages of maybe 35 and probably upwards to 50, even going into elders. One of the things that we're trying to do, Jolana, is really increase our youth engagement. We have a youth services department, but I believe we can do, there's opportunity for improvement to engage our youth, because again, like you with communications, we had to take a look at communications too. Our communications team is young. They're all between like maybe 20 and 24 years old, because someone like me who's in my 50s, I look at tickers, I guess that's TikTok, but I know nothing about that, so I'll leave it to the young people. But they know how to reach, they know how to reach the community, they know how to, you know, with the innovation, with, you know, artwork and how they just capture people's attention. But that's kind of what our community is looking like. UAII is about 50 years old. We turned 50 years old this year. We started in Skid Row, so some of our community members, I guess a large part of them, are still from that original family of Skid Row. So what we're starting to see is that they're now elders, and now we're starting to see their children. So when we talk about generational, how we have impact, or what it looks like generational, it's changed. The issues that were 50 years ago don't exist today, so we've had to really start to look at what are the issues today. Now we're starting to see what you guys have seen in Phoenix. The issues are now sex trafficking, addiction. Our numbers of Indian child welfare is going up. the reunification rate in Los Angeles County for ICWA cases is low. We currently have 129 children, Native children or Indian children, in foster care in Los Angeles County. So the generations we're starting to see that are different, but I feel like there's still the need to have a greater impact of how we're changing the generations. We're seeing the generational issues, but now let's start focus on the generational successes. I would like to get to a point to where we are sending our youth to college. You're not coming in for rental assistance, but we're helping you with down payment assistance on a car. On a house. We have to start changing the narrative. Another initiative that we have started is sending our staff back home for ceremony. So say, for instance, if you are one of our staff members, you can submit a form and state whatever the travel cost is going to be. No questions asked, we approve it, because my thing is that is part of self-determination. If you want to go back home for ceremony, we're going to make sure you have the travel funds to go back home for ceremony. That's closing those generational gaps. That's bringing people closer to home. Same thing for community members. If you're a community member, you want to go back home for ceremony, or if you're an elder, you just need to go back home. I know I need to at times, because I need to go back home right now. We're going to make sure you get there. And it's our responsibility to start looking at other ways of how to diversify our funding, our revenue as well, so that we can exercise self-determination. I did not leave my sovereignty at my reservation. Sovereignty goes wherever I go. And I try to educate our community about that, because we need to move in that way, that we are sovereign individuals. And that was proven by the federal funding that we received for urban Indian organizations, because if the trust obligation was only to the tribe, we wouldn't receive any federal funding. So it does exist that we can continue to exercise self-determination. I'm sorry, what was the last part of the question?
What motivates your community or what are the issues, and how would you encourage them to get out and vote?
What motivates our community is, I think we're tired. We're simply just tired. And what's motivating our community now is empowering our community with knowledge. As Jolana has just stated, is that really pushing that narrative of dual citizenship. You know, we all have I was learning in one of my classes, a moral responsibility to our people. I tell our community and leadership, I am here because someone survived the Ishti Nini Imitogi, which is a path of the suffering people. I am here because someone survived. So when someone said earlier about breaking the glass ceiling, you have to be careful with that, because when you break that glass ceiling, that glass does fall down. Are you willing to still walk on that glass to continue the work? I know I am, because if my ancestors survived Ishti Imitogi, I can still walk on that glass and continue to do the work of my ancestors. So to me, it's empowering our communities about the people that we come from, and that's what is so important about knowing the people that you come from. When I introduce myself, I say, Ishti Muskogee Doez. I come from the Muskogee people. I'm not just Muskogee. Those are the people that I come from. And so I make sure our community knows that, because that's what's empowering, is knowing the people that you come from so you can carry on. Because each one of us right here, you're here today because someone survived for you to be here. So it is our responsibility to carry on. That is what, to me, is enough to empower our community. It is our responsibility. And voting, it's an act of defiance. We must vote. Because we have a political stand. Our standing in this country is political, so everything about us is political. Our identity, we're the only people who we have to talk about blood quantum like we're dogs and horses and stuff. So the pendulum can swing at any time. You know, I don't have to always worry about IHS shutting us down. I have to worry about Congress if someone's going to get antsy and the pendulum is going to swing. So that is why we need to vote, because we have to protect our people and get this education. I say this to all of you young people. Get your education not to change your community, but to understand the ways of the Estehetkis so that we can go and make a difference in our communities.
Very good. Strong words. Appreciate it. Janine, the same question is, who do you serve? Are you seeing generational differences in the populations that you serve? What does your community look like? And how are you navigating the current issues and barriers and motivation to voting?
So the NUIFC is actually a national organization, and so we serve urban Native nonprofits, but part of what we do in our role in serving these 55 urban Native nonprofits is really get a sense of what's happening on the ground in cities all across America. And so one of the big things that we're seeing is, I'll start with the generation, with what's going on with young people. So one of the things we're seeing in the cities is that our young people are increasingly multiracial and multi-tribal. And the multi-tribal part is really important because the other thing we're seeing, and this is a third rail in Indian country, is enrollment. So our organizations all across the United States are serving Native people. These organizations don't really care if they're enrolled because that's how our people identify. And our young people particularly often are, again, multiracial, multi-tribal, and often not enough of one tribe to be enrolled in that tribe. Like my nieces are 5 different tribes. They're over half Indian, and they're not enrolled in a single one of them. Thank God. I mean, Quinault just went to descendancy. But that's not an uncommon experience in Indian country, and Indian country needs to reckon with that because it's happening right now. Enrollment is one of those things that was designed to literally get us out of existence over time, and it's happening. So it's something that our young people are grappling with. They're very vocal about it. They're very knowledgeable about it. And it's just, I think, something that Indian country needs to deal with. The other issue that we're seeing in cities all across America, and both Hope and Jolana have spoken about it, is that our people are being pushed out because in America's cities, the insane cost of living is so bad for and not just Native families, for all families who live in cities, that what we're seeing is that the transportation issue that Hope brought up becomes infinitely more important because what we're seeing is that folks they're having to deal with broken transportation systems in order to reach the services that they need. So what we're looking at, what I'm seeing all over the country, are these urban organizations who are beginning to develop satellites. And again, all of this, really interfaces with policy and how policy rolls out in our communities.
Very good. We got 3 minutes, and we're going to do a speed round. So we'll see how our panelists do. So the last question that we have for you is, why should candidates and policymakers think about the urban Native vote? And we'll go ahead and start with Hope and then go straight down the line.
Okay, let me make this quick because I like to talk a lot. So we only got 2 minutes, 54 seconds. I'm going to be at 52 seconds right now. Why they should consider us, because we matter. We can swing the vote. Just think about it. If we all came together and unified, we can make a difference. We can determine who's going to be sitting, whether it's in your state legislators, federal legislators, or even in the Oval, the White House over there. We can determine that. Remember, we're the caretakers of this land. And as the caretakers of this land, we need to get together, set aside any differences we all may have. Let's come together and let's do the work. Let's get it done. Like John Lewis would say, let's get into some good trouble. And let's continue. We already flipped Arizona. People like to say other people did it. No, it was us who did it. Let's continue to do the work across this nation because we can do it, but we have to do it together. We can't sit up here, be looking at each other side-eye, or saying this person is that and this person is that. We have to come together. And that is so important right now. My 52 minutes are up, but I'm telling you, look to your neighbor and say, I need you, what you need me to do, because we're about to do it. Like Stacey Adams said, I think it's voice. What did she say yesterday? Voice, the 3 V's, voice, verify, and volunteer. Get it done.
I echo what Hope's shared, power in numbers. We did do work. We're going to do work again. I think that, we are definitely gaining momentum. We have Auntie Deb and all of these elected officials that our young people are looking at. And it is the beginning, I think, of a really important, powerful movement for Indian country. But together, in numbers, we can do this. And we have a lot of issues and challenges and barriers that we're bringing to the table, and they are going to listen.
Very good. Janine.
So when elections are won by 3,000 to 4,000 votes, your vote absolutely matters. Your family's vote absolutely matters. And so I think that, one of the things that I also, when I think about urban Native voters, I also think about our tribes, because we also vote in the state governments and the federal governments that have to interface with our tribes. So we're all in this together. I think there's power in numbers. I also think coalition building with other communities of color is really, really, really important, because we have that power in numbers. And I think even though we are sovereign people, that when we live in a city, we are also part of the fabric of that city, and ensuring that that city and those elected officials know who we are matters. And I'll end with that. I think that when you have, for instance, in Seattle, Washington, Native people are about 3% of the population. We make up 10% of the city's homeless population. Our child population in Washington State, we're under 2% of the population. We make up 16% of the children in foster care. So when we talk about why it's important and why Native people are important, it's because we need to address those numbers. And while people call us statistically insignificant, we're not when it comes to how taxpayer dollars are paying for the issues that could have been prevented had these urban Indian centers like this been funded and pursued the policies at the state and local and federal level to address these before they happen.
Very good. We want to thank our panelists. And again, the takeaway is that voting is an act of defiance. So again, we appreciate all the work that you do. And again, to our audience for all the work that you do as well. Tahuge, thank you.
It always amazes me when we bring panels up of the knowledge that we have, not only on our reservations, but in urban centers. And when they talk about reaching out and working with other people of color, they're so right on the money. We reached out years ago to my little sister over there, Janine, and we started working with them. They've helped us through campaigns by doing text messaging to tribal members, by providing data as far as where the individuals live. So it's really, really great when we hear about people coming together, working with other groups, other organizations. This isn't just a deal for getting out the vote. It's also one where we can make a connection with other organizations, other people, just to make it stronger. So thank you very much. Let's give another hand. Best part of today's activities is now we're gonna have lunch. So we'll give you like 45 minutes, and then we'll come back, and I'll try to catch up on the agenda. But I'm telling you, you're going to hear some real interesting conversations, some deals that are going to save tribes a lot of money. You're going to hear about intercommunication, multicultural connections between different organizations, different races, and how we all work together. So have a good lunch, and we'll see you in about 45 minutes. Okay, I know some of you are on diets, but one of the ways that we really acknowledge your coming here and taking part is that we feed you. And so I ask everybody to go grab a plate, have something to eat, and enjoy the meal. So get going. No.